Coming up on Arirang News, South Korea continues to see massive amounts of rainfall in the central regions near Seoul. Another 500 millimeters expected by tomorrow in what's going to be the country's longest monsoon on record. Inflation ticks up slightly in South Korea. Consumer prices up 0.3% in July compared to a year before, the first time inflation's been positive in 3 months. And the government announces plans to add 130,000 new homes in Seoul and the surrounding area to try and get overheated property prices under control. It's 5 o'clock p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea's central region is getting heavy monsoon rains, which have already caused deadly floods and landslides. Another 500 millimeters of rain are expected by tomorrow, including in Seoul. Our Lee Kyung-eun is at the Han River in the Korean capital with the latest. Kyung-eun, how are things looking now?
Hi, Devin. We're seeing on and off showers at the moment, but another round of torrential rain is expected for the capital region in the coming hours. Already, a lot of places are flooded, including here at Tamsu Bridge, where I'm standing right now. The water level has fallen compared to yesterday, but the bridge remains closed to traffic for the third consecutive day. And it is because it's still above the safety standard of 6.2 meters. And it's mostly due to the massive inflow of water from Paltang Dam, which has been releasing tons of water into the Han River. And that was to allow the storage for more rain over the coming days. The National Weather Agency forecasts the capital region could receive some 500 additional millimeters of rain by tomorrow. And it is expected to be a similar situation for southern Gangwon-do and Chungcheongbuk-do provinces.
Now, Kyung-eun, the monsoon first started in Korea on the southern island of Jeju 2 months ago. In Seoul, we're just now going through the most intense period of the monsoon now. When's it expected to end?
Yes, Devin, it is going to be one of the longest monsoons ever recorded in South Korea. The latest monsoon has ended in the past was August 10th in 1987, but as of Tuesday, the National Weather Agency forecasts this year's monsoon is likely to end on August 14th. If the forecast is correct, it will definitely make it the longest rainy season in South Korea. So central regions will be getting these on and off heavy showers for the time being. And what's worse, Typhoon Hagupit is also going to affect the country indirectly, bringing sporadic showers throughout the week. Already much damage has been reported across the country, so to prevent any more damage, people are advised to refrain from going outside and to take extra caution in the mountainous areas. Back to you, Devin.
All right, Lee Kyung-eun reporting there. Thank you. In other news, South Korea has been winning praise around the world for its innovative drive-through model for testing people for the coronavirus. Now the drive-through model is being considered by the International Organization for Standardization to be made the global standard. According to the Trade Ministry, the ISO decided to take up the proposal in a vote whose results were released today. South Korea started drive-through testing back in February, which helped to get the local outbreak under control quickly and effectively. The ministry said it'll take at least 3 years for the ISO to adopt it as the standard system globally. South Korea has been treating some coronavirus patients with the antiviral drug remdesivir, and so far, out of 106 of them, 4 have had abnormal reactions to the drug. That's according to the Central Disease Control Headquarters, which said Tuesday that side effects included skin rashes and reduced liver function. It noted that those treated with remdesivir are mostly elderly people with underlying diseases. It said further probes are underway to determine exactly how effective the drug is. Remdesivir was approved by South Korea as a treatment for COVID-19 back in June. South Korea's defense ministry says North Korea does appear to have developed miniaturized nuclear devices to a considerable level. The ministry's deputy spokesperson was asked to respond today to a report from Reuters citing confidential UN documents saying that several countries believe the North has developed mini nukes to a degree that they can be mounted on ballistic missiles. In addition to that assessment, the spokesperson said the South Korean military is monitoring the regime's nuclear activities closely along with the United States. The UN report, according to Reuters, had one of the countries saying the regime might be trying to miniaturize the weapons further so it can develop multiple warhead systems. South Korea's consumer prices rose in July for the first time in 3 months, but the increase was barely above zero. According to statistics, Korea last month's consumer price index rose to 104.86, up 0.3% from a year earlier. The prices of meat, fish, and produce rose 6.4%, while petroleum products fell 10.2%. The agency said inflationary pressure was weak because of low oil prices globally and because restaurants did not raise prices much because of the pandemic. The South Korean government has announced new plans to increase the supply of homes in the capital area to help cool down the overheated property market. As part of this, it's going to ease regulations on redevelopment projects when they involve public sector institutions. Yoon Jung-min reports.
In Seoul and the surrounding areas, more than 130,000 additional homes will be supplied to try to get more people onto the property ladder. When including previously announced supply plans, that brings the total number of new homes to 260,000 in total.
We will do our utmost to curb market speculation and help people in need of homes. In that regard, we will provide more than half of the new homes to those who are buying homes for the first time, young people, and newly married couples.
To do that, the government said Tuesday that it will develop unused sites in the capital area while easing regulations on residential floor space. In Seoul, the areas slated for development include a golf course in Taedong and a former U.S. military campsite in Yongsan. Also on the list are other plots of state-owned land in the greater Seoul area. The government will also raise the floor area ratio by up to 500% for reconstruction for firms working with public institutions like Korea Land and Housing Corporation. Those reconstructed apartment buildings can go up as high as 50 floors. But developers have to give back up to 70% of that extra space so that it can be used for public leases. On Tuesday, the ruling party passed revisions on real estate policy, including raising tax rates on those who own multiple homes, particularly in speculative areas. Following a revision on the lease reporting system, landlords and tenants must report to their local government within 30 days of signing a contract starting from next June. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, Global Strategist at Gov't Securities. Mr. Yu, thank you as always for making time.
Good afternoon.
Well, let's start with Wall Street, where the three main indices were up quite a bit on Monday. Tech shares in particular leading the NASDAQ to an all-time high during the session. What's the story in the global markets?
Yes, as you said, U.S. market showed quite strong movement yesterday. If you look at Dow Jones, it was up 0.9%. S&P was up 0.7%. And also NASDAQ jumped by 1.5% to new record high of breaking above 10,900 territories. Also, the small caps were quite strong as well. One of the big underperformer year to date has performed quite well by rising 1.8%. Clearly, there are news in regards to the COVID-19 treatment. Eli Lilly said that it was beginning a phase 3 trial of this experimental drug to see whether it can prevent the virus spread in residents and staffs in U.S. nursing homes. And these news are obviously clearly putting some benefits to the overall market sentiment. Also, a lot of these numbers are coming out from the Eurozone, U.S., and globally in regards to the PMI data. All is showing better than expected number that economy is in right track to recovery. Due to these kind of positive news, the overall markets were quite strong, and that fitted to the Asian market being quite strong as well. If you look at the Korean market as well as the other Asian market did quite strongly. However, though, Chinese market have shown somewhat of a correction.
Well, you mentioned data from the U.S. Manufacturing activity last month rising to a 1.5-year high. That would seem to have contributed to today's stock market gains in Korea. What happened on the Kospi and the Kosdaq?
Right. I think that clearly there's a news that the global economy is recovering. A lot of people were worried that because of the pandemic, the new patients, the trend was quite sharp rise that we saw in the past several weeks, and that is breaking the record high numbers. Everybody were worried about the economy not recovering. However, though, these numbers are showing that the recovery is in right track for recovery. If you look at the overall savings ratio of the U.S., it is going down to 19%, but nevertheless, we have seen quite a significant consumption growth, the retail sales growth numbers. All that means is that it is positive news for the Korean economy because Korea depends highly on the exports, and we were worried about the export numbers being continue to be very weak, year-on-year declining numbers. But we are now hoping that these numbers should turn positive sometime within this year. And if that's the case, Korea should be remaining at one of the better performing economy relative to other countries. Because of that, we saw costs be rising by 1.3%. Kosdaq was risen again by 0.94%. That's quite a strong movement as Kosdaq has been continued to be moving up higher in the last several days, despite the Kospi being quite weak in the last several days until today. All in all, these economic news as well as the additional liquidity conditions that we see the money flowing into the equity market, the customer deposits continue to show rising trend, reaching 47.8 trillion won. We think that these should affect positively in the medium to longer term for Korean equity market.
Well, now you mentioned consumers, and consumer prices last month in Korea were up 0.3% compared to a year earlier. That's an increase at least, unlike the past few months, but it's still very much on the low side. What do you make of that figure?
Yes, it's good news that it is showing a relatively better than expected, and inflation is coming back. We like inflation rather than deflation, and the South Korea's inflation edged up for the first time in 3 months in July amid the signs of recovery in the consumer sentiment. But still, as you said, it remains below central bank's 2% annual target. I don't think that there are any economies that are showing that kind of inflation numbers. Clearly, the economies are affected negatively by the COVID-19 event. However, though, the number seems to be gradually recovering. The core inflation numbers are gaining by about 0.7% YOY, which is a good trend. All in all, we think the consumer price should recover to above 1% as the month goes by. The inflation coming back is definitely positive news for the economy, and that the overall economy recovery should be in a right track where Korea can rise by about 2% YOY in a longer term basis. However, though, the interest rate environment, if inflation comes back, it might be showing a rising trend. If the inflation numbers come in at bigger than expected, then the interest rate rise should be rapid. If that's the case, then bond investment will be unattractive. And also higher interest rate means that lower sentiment for the equity market as well. So we are in a mixture where the inflation numbers are in a rising trend, but not to the extent where it damages the equity market. We think that this kind of so-called the right number of the inflation environment is definitely positive news for the equity market in general.
Got it. All right, Mr. Yu, thank you for sharing your insights today. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Now, a Chinese artificial intelligence company has filed a patent infringement lawsuit against Apple. Shanghai Zhizhen Network Technology, also known as Xiaoyi, announced on Monday that it's suing Apple in a Shanghai court for $1.43 billion in damages. It argues that Apple's voice recognition technology, Siri, introduced in 2011, infringes on a patent it was granted in 2009. It demands that Apple stop the sale, production, and use of products that infringe on that patent, which include the majority of Apple's products. Xiaoyi first sued Apple over Siri in 2012. And last month, China's Supreme Court ruled that the Chinese firm's patent is valid. Several top South Korean entertainers have made donations to help with relief efforts for people affected by the ongoing flooding and landslides caused by the monsoon rains. According to the Korea Disaster Relief Association, entertainer Yoo Jae-seok donated more than $83,000 to the agency's 2020 emergency relief campaign. Actor Park Seo-joon is known to have donated a similar amount. Actress Yoo In-na has pitched in around $41,000, and so has actor Song Joong-ki. And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.